literally like the grapes of wrath,
Mm,
in the truck, came out to California in the work camps, and then made their way to Oregon.
wow.
Mhm.
Well, that's fascinating. You should write a book with your family. Welcome back, all my Courage, Confidence, Connections podcast listeners. I appreciate your returning. I'm Janice Debo, your host, and I have a guest with me, Jane McGuire. We're going to have fun today and talk about what she does and find out more about who she is and where she came from. We were just talking about hair, so we won't go there and bore you with our hair talk. Welcome, Jane.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I know you work with hospice now, and we'll get into that. But I want to know and have you tell our audience a little bit more about your background. Like, where did you grow up, and what are some of your favorite things as a child?
Oh, okay. I grew up here locally. I'm from Central Oregon. I grew up in Madras, born and raised there. So I'm really not very far from home. I live in Pal Butte now. And before that, we spent about 25 years living in Redmond. I love Central Oregon. I love the area, the people. I think it's a great community to be a part of. And so we never really strayed too far away. I've always lived in Oregon. So yeah.
That's fantastic. And being in this area, are you into some of the outdoor stuff that did you grow up skiing and snowboarding and hiking and all that stuff that people love to do around here?
A little bit,
Mhm.
in that I really don't like to be cold, so I'm not much of a snow person. I love to watch it with a fireplace and a hot cup of cocoa. That's my kind of snowing. Um, but I grew up pretty close to Lake Billy Chinook here. And so we spent a ton of time. We called it the Cove, and we would go down to the docks in the summertime and water ski and play and hang out in the sun. And I love that. I love to fish. I'm
Oh,
from a family that hunted, and so I don't hunt, but I've been on a lot of hunting trips. And so I kind of am just a Central Oregon girl in that way.
oh, that's fantastic. I didn't know that. I'm not into hunting either. I don't think I could handle all that goes with that. It's
Me
not,
neither. Me
yeah.
neither. I love to watch the wildlife, and so
Hmm.
I do enjoy them, and I love living out in the country. We have deer in our yard on occasion, and some mountain bluebirds that if you have not seen, you need to look up. They're this cobalt blue, and they're just gorgeous. And so
Yeah.
I love that. It's a place of peace here for me.
Well, they take special houses now. They're real popular. Bluebirds are very popular in North Carolina, where I come from, and
Oh,
they're my favorite bird. They're gorgeous. I don't see them. I live in Redmond, but I've never seen a bluebird here where I live now, and I have bird feeders. I see the yellow birds. I forget what they're called. I think I've had goldfinches and some of those others, but I've never seen a bluebird here.
you need to come out to my house.
Oh, nice. Do you have special houses you built for them and all that?
No, I don't, but there's a couple of areas in our yard that they just love that they're already moved into. So we have some big juniper trees out here, and so
Oh,
they seem to enjoy that.
oh, that's great. They are so gorgeous.
Mhm.
They're stunning.
They
And
are.
yeah, my mom was a big time bird watcher and bird feeder, and even gave me a little book on helping me identify the birds. And I've been feeding them for years. And
Mhm.
I had to get squirrel proof bird feeders back in North Carolina because the squirrels were horrendous for climbing your bird feeder poles. And
Oh, right.
yeah, oh, yeah. And I do have a funny story about a deer because I lived in Terrebonne for a little while, which for our audience is just a 10-minute drive from where I live now. However, where I lived, there was a lot of wildlife like where you are. And
Mhm.
deer would come through the yard. Apparently, a moose, not a moose, but an elk one time came through the yard. There was evidence of that. So I had this pet deer that I adopted and named him Bentley. He was young and skinny, and even got a picture of him with my cat where deer was outside and Toby's sitting in the window and telling me to go look at the deer. It was so funny. But
Mhm.
Bentley wanted my bird food. and he would literally walk up to the bird feeder and look up. If it was empty, he would just glare at me through the window. So the wildlife is so fun and it's great. Now, do you still go fishing since you're talking wildlife?
Haven't been for a little while, but we'll go again this summer. During COVID, we happened to buy a travel trailer right before everything disappeared.
Oh,
And so I love it, and I love to go out. We go up the Crooked River and park there. It doesn't have hookups or anything, but we park there next to the river and fish and just hang out. And that's a peaceful, happy place for me.
oh, that's great. Now, do you do fly fishing or just regular fishing?
I haven't learned to fly fish. My sister was an amazing fly fisherman, but not me.
Well, I thought about, fishing. I tried it growing up, and my family wasn't into that, and so I didn't get into it. However, find it fascinating with watching people that do fly fishing. That is an art. That is a real
It really
art.
is. It really is. And Todd and I have talked about that we definitely want to take some lessons. So it'll happen.
Oh, that's great. That's great. There's a lot to learn in this area with wildlife and just nature because there's so much to offer.
Mhm.
Now, growing up, it sounds like you did a lot of fishing and camping and that kind of thing. Was that
We
your,
did. We
yeah?
did. Yeah. My dad was a farmer and also raised mint for candy and mint oil and things like that. And then he owned an irrigation business. And so I was always kind of on the farm.
Oh, that's fantastic. I've always lived out in country places because with my dad's job as a preacher, he got moved a lot and it seems like he got all the country assignments. And so but my grandfather was a peanut farmer, and I think people don't believe me when I tell them that. Like, yeah, he really was a peanut farmer, and he had hogs too, so I guess that helped feed the hogs.
Yeah. Huh. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, it was. It was. But I get a good laugh when I tell people that my grandfather farmed peanuts. It's really not common, not a common thing you hear about. Yeah.
No, my dad grew up in Oklahoma. And so he and his family, this is what I tell people about, is that they came out and it was literally like the grapes of wrath,
Mm,
in the truck, came out to California in the work camps, and then made their way to Oregon.
wow.
Mhm.
Well, that's fascinating. You should write a book with your family's lineage in there. And I bet you have a lot of stories you can tell.
I have a few, but it's pretty interesting.
I would encourage you to get a tape recorder and just record some stories with your father and your family so that you can keep track of them. People lose track of their heritage and the things that, matter to pass down. So I always,
Yeah, I wish we would have done that. I have some really short recordings of him, but he's passed now, so
oh,
the
goodness.
opportunity missed for sure.
Well, I hope you can recall more. And I'm sorry to hear about that, and I didn't get my mother recorded before she passed either, and which was 2 years ago. And I do remember a lot of stories from her, but
Mhm.
yeah, but we never ever get the full story from our families unless we just sit down and like, you need to write this out, right?
Right, right.
Well,
And I
that's
started once my dad had dementia. I tell people the same thing, and I have this little it's just a notes page in my phone, and it has like all these different funny things that he would say that I didn't want to forget. So since he was from Oklahoma, if anyone said okay, he would be someone would say okay, and he'd be like LA, and then you'd have to say HOMA, and we'd spell the word Oklahoma out. And so he did that so many times I can't even count.
oh, that's fantastic. Did he ever sing the song?
No, no, but I did.
I love it. I love it. Well, if you tell our listeners, we're going to talk about, you mentioned your dad had dementia and I had my mom was on hospice. So let's talk about how you got from living in Oregon with a father that was ill with what you deal with now. And let's talk about how you got into the hospice opportunity because you do make a difference. And so let's talk about the difference that hospice makes in the lives of people and talk a little bit about your family with
Okay.
what you dealt with.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I kind of joke around and say no one grew up and had the plan to be in hospice care. You don't hear about that. You hear about kids wanting to be firemen and police officers and the president and things like that, but I've never once heard anyone say they wanted to work in hospice. It wasn't on my radar. I wanted to manage people and be involved in that. And so I did that for a number of years. I was in banking for 21 years.
Oh, wow.
And then I started volunteering a little nonprofit in Redmond that I fell in love with. And we were really helping case manage and resource with people who needed that type of help at the time.
Mhm.
And it ended up that I left the bank, talked to my husband and my son, and said, I think I'm going to make this big change. It was a big change. I took out all my 401k. We paid off all of our bills,
Wow.
and I jumped into the nonprofit world. And it was scary. I literally remember, I think I was hyperventilating on the phone before I left because I was so scared to make that big of a change.
Yeah.
But it was worth it 100%. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about people. I got to have a lot of wonderful conversations with people and then learn to have difficult conversations with them as well, talking about what their experiences are. And unfortunately, I wasn't making ends meet in that role. And so one of the people that was on the board for that organization also worked at Hospice of Redmond. And so she called me and she said, Jane, I think that you have the qualifications for this role. And so I joined the team at that point as a transitions coordinator.
Okay.
And that's kind of, it's a case management, non-medical, free program that Hospice of Redmond provides for community members. And so I was invited into a lot of homes to have a lot of conversations about what was going on and then help them, help provide resources to them.
Yeah.
The crazy thing about that, Janice, was that my sister had been diagnosed with cancer.
Mm.
And so during this time, we had went to the doctor and we're talking about options for her. And sitting there in the oncologist, they told me about the transitions program, and I had never heard of it. I didn't know anything about it. And then within just a short time, I was the transitions coordinator at Hospice of Redmond. So I felt like that these paths had kind of lined up there. Like I really feel like all of my paths have lined me to this
Hmm.
or have led me to this. So it's interesting how life kind of twists and turns and takes you into those places.
Yeah, you were definitely on track for that. Now,
Mhm.
did you have to deal with your father's dementia prior to getting the experience that you've had now with hospice?
No, no, no. Actually, my first experience with hospice was with our mother.
Oh,
I was 33 and my mom died of cancer.
oh,
And so my sister and I were her caregivers, and my dad and my brothers too, but mainly my sister and I. I had a job at the bank at that time where I could work from home. So I took care of her during the week, and then I'd go home and be with my family, and my sister would come in on the weekends and take care of her. She was diagnosed with a aggressive type of leukemia,
mm,
and she once diagnosed, she lived about 6 months.
mm,
And so my first experience was really at her very end of life. And I remember the night that she passed away, I called and spoke with a hospice nurse and kind of told her what was going on with my mom. And she didn't say she was coming, but she came right over. And it was pretty late at night. It was around 11 or so. And right after she got there, then my mom passed. So that was my first experience. And then my second was with my sister. And that happened not too long after I joined Hospice of Redmond.
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well,
And
you definitely were prepared to do what you do now. And so I'm curious, how on percentage wise, how many would you say percentage wise that you work with and take care of are dementia patients? And that's got to be near and dear to your heart.
Oh, it definitely is. And cancer is too, because I lost my mom and my sister that way. I actually don't have that number off the top of my head, Janice, but I know it's a lot, and I know that it's increasing in a very drastic amount. And to the point where now that baby boomers are aging into those ages, right? We're not going to have enough facilities to probably house those people. And so being able to take care of our loved ones at home is going to be even more crucial and important. I think not to get too broadly and philosophical about this, but I think that as Americans, we have not been super good at that, right? Other countries we hear about are better at taking care of their loved ones at home. And I think it's time for us to make a change in that area and start doing that. We're going to have to.
I think
So,
we're going to have to as well. I know my sister was primary caregiver for my mom. Now, my mom was diagnosed with Parkinson's, oh, probably 15 or maybe longer, 15 or 18 years prior to her passing in 2023. And thankfully, until my sister got to where she couldn't physically take care of my mom for transfers and things like that. And my mom had a knee surgery, and she later regretted it because she never got fully rehabilitated and wound up in a nursing care facility. However, she got waited on hand and foot, and she got spoiled. I mean, she was
mhm.
cared for very well. And so I had an experience with hospice. I remember when they called and I said, Mom's not dying, is she? And I think our public also needs to have a deeper understanding of what is hospice, because my first reaction was, Mom's not on death's door. She's got Parkinson's and she has troubles and she lives in a facility, but, and they're going, no, 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 it's not about that. It's about extended care. So why don't you educate our audience a little bit, and then we're going to talk further about educating the public in general about hospice and being their own caregivers. So yeah, tell me more about how hospice comes into play, and you don't have to be on death's door to have hospice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that even the when you get hospice, I think down the road those rules are going to be changing when it comes to dementia. Um, so in order to receive hospice, you need to have a prognosis from a doctor of 6 months or less. And so that looks a lot different for a lot of different people, right? But most people, like you were saying, think that it's those last few days of life when hospice comes in. It's really important to get and reach out to hospice sooner than that. And the reason is because it makes a big deal for us to be able to come in and get to know the patient and
Mhm,
the family and the dynamics so that we can really provide that assistance earlier. And if you think about it, 6 months is a long time when we could be in there helping.
mhm.
And unfortunately, a lot of times by the time people call us, the caregivers are burned out, they're tired, their health is declining because they haven't had the opportunity to get the rest that they need to.
Yeah.
So the other part of it is that you need to be ready for comfort care. So I always say it's two parts. You need to be physically ready, but you need to be mentally ready too. And that means comfort care, no longer seeking curative care. So you're not running to the emergency room. You're not looking for chemo anymore. You're to the point where you just are looking for comfort and quality for the rest of your days, and not looking for curative anymore.
Yeah. I think that's really just super important to understand. Now, since I guess you go to people's homes and take care of them there, are there facilities that where hospice goes into instead of families' homes? I mean, do you guys have a facility yourself? And I know some of these answers, but our audience probably doesn't. Do does hospice ever provide a building with care like a hospital kind of thing?
Sure, sure. Some do. Our particular hospice doesn't. We go into wherever you call home. And So if that's a facility, we go in there, or adult foster homes. We have some wonderful adult foster homes in the area
Yeah.
where we've taken care of patients. Um, and we also, if there's needed for a step up in care, what's required and what Medicare pays for is more of a skilled nursing facility. And there is a hospice in Central Oregon that does have a hospice house. Um, and then we also can contract with them or with other skilled nursing facilities to provide that extra level of care if someone needs that type of, they used to be called nursing homes.
Yeah,
Um, And so we can provide care for people there too.
oh, that's so good. Well, my mom was in, a rehab center, and they came frequently, and it meant a lot because she had more people to talk to, and the people that would come visit with her, they stayed in touch with me, and I became friends with the hospice caregivers. But it makes a world of difference in the last days. And I remember, you know, family was there, but it was more important that hospice stayed in touch with me on what mom needed and what she was going through medically and all of that. It's
Right, right.
it's
So, and in our journey, especially with my dad, so you were talking about my dad and his dementia, and his dementia declined. He had it for a number of years. I want to say probably 10. He passed in 2019. But I was working for Hospice of Redmond at the time, and so it was really a different dynamic, right, for me. And I was working for Hospice of Redmond with my sister too, but it was a different dynamic for me to have my coworkers come into our home and take care of my father. And hospice. I have a wonderful stepmom, and she was the primary caregiver for my dad. Hospice doesn't provide caregiving, and so when the nurses and things would come in, it was so beautiful. They just took such great care of him. He had some difficult days, and it allowed me to be a daughter and my stepmom to be his wife.
Mhm.
And the nurses would come in and do those special cares. We had, a CNA that would come in and help him with his showers and things like that. We had chaplaincy and volunteers. And it just was so neat to have this huge group of people that could come in and provide that care so that I could just be his daughter.
Yeah.
So I loved that part of it.
And I think a lot of cases people don't realize. I mean, caregiving, I've watched friends and others go through the difficulty of being a caregiver, not realizing that they're the ones they're wearing out, completely wearing out. I'm sure there's a lot of illness that comes into the lives of caregivers who have just poured out everything they had.
Mhm.
Now, I know Alzheimer's and dementia are two of the most difficult things to deal with. I have a friend in Kansas. His wife died of Alzheimer's, and he wrote about it. He wrote a book that about his journey with her and how hard it was. And he had multiple sons. I think he's got three sons that were kind of kept him in check
Mhm.
because he wasn't taking care of himself. And my mother's best friend also passed from Alzheimer's, and her husband was the primary caregiver. And I've learned a lot about that. The caregivers need caregiving, and
They do.
they
They
really
do. And that's one of the things that I like about the transitions program, kind of where I started in the hospice
do.
work, is because, we're able to come alongside and answer some of those difficult questions and see and visit with people and give them a resource before they're even down that road.
Yeah,
So, one of the things that we've done is, we help people with end of life planning. We can help people as far as getting set up with caregivers so that they can get a break, and then also come in with things like wonderful services like Meals on Wheels.
oh yeah,
So that even though I've had people say, oh, it's okay because I'm cooking for him. Well, but don't you need a little break? What if you didn't have to think about what to make for lunch or didn't have to make that meal every day?
yeah.
Wouldn't that be a gift? And then they're like, oh, that would be really nice, so to have some of those resources is really helpful.
Yeah, it is. I have a friend that whose father passed with dementia. They finally put him in a facility in Redmond, but I would come over and just take him for drives and rides, and I learned some stuff. I mean, he was hilarious. He was very entertaining. It was I'd get to hear the same story all the time, but I never, they got him in a place that took care of him before it got really bad. But I'm curious what's being done in our general society, and maybe you guys have addressed this with educating people on taking care of their families. Like we said, there needs to be more of that. What is happening in that particular world of people say, like you said, other countries are really much better at taking care of their elders. So what's being done in our country that you might be aware of or be able to assist with?
Mhm. Well, I'm glad you asked because one of the things that we do is provide education. And so you'll find that hospices will go in and partner with, like, we'll partner with the Redmond Senior Center to provide educational classes, or we'll provide them at our office as well. And we partnered with an agency, when my dad was struggling with his dementia, and my brother and I went. And so for us, it was really interesting because my dad would have some of those memories like you were talking about, but as time went on, they started to get a little twisted, and he would struggle sometimes with agitation and things like that. And one of the things that I learned at one of those classes was that if I could lean into those memories that
Mm.
were positive for my dad, and so my dad had one. My dad was a Golden Glove boxer.
Oh,
And he
wow.
has this memory of when he was a youngster and he went to the state fair in Salem, and these guys came along and they threw French fries at somebody. And so my dad stepped in and said, "Hey, you need to knock it off." And the other guy was like, "You want to make something of it?" And I
Mm.
know this story really well. I heard it so many times, Janice. And so anyway, and so my dad like punched this guy and knocked him out cold. And
Oh,
so later on, I think it was like a year or so later, my dad runs into this same guy and he's like, "Well, I know not to mess with you again." And so my dad loved that story so much that if he started to get agitated, I could say, "Hey, Dad, tell me about the time when you were at the state fair." And so he would go down that road, and it made him so happy that he would forget about the other, about the agitation. And so that really helped. And so we had a few of those stories in our pocket, and we learned to use those from going to these educational seminars. So
now does your particular organization provide that to meet, that type of thing? Is that something that
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, we do. And then we also I don't want to forget to mention too, like Oregon, and particularly Central Oregon has the Alzheimer's Association that does this kind of thing too, and they're wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. In your experience, and you've obviously had family with cancer and dementia and had to deal with both, there is no easy illness, but do you find more families struggle with the dementia and Alzheimer's than they struggle with a loved one who's got issues with cancer? Because a lot of times people with some illnesses can take better care of themselves than when people are losing their memory. So what are your thoughts on
Mhm.
that? Because I'm not educated in that field.
Um, I don't really know the answer to that. I think that it depends on your relationship. It depends on your loved one. It depends on how their course of illness goes. My mom's illness was pretty traumatic,
Yeah.
and that was a very difficult thing for me, but I was 33 years old.
Yeah.
And yet it has stayed with me my entire life. I'm 55 now, and I still struggle with that death.
Yeah.
Um, the My sister's death was much more peaceful, and then my dad's was more peaceful yet. But I know of people that have not had that experience, and there were times when my dad, because the illness lasted so very long, it was really hard, and I know it was really hard on my stepmom.
Yeah.
So it just depends. I don't know. I don't know that we can compare, and your experience with your mom is, I can only imagine was probably one of the most difficult parts of your life. That's how it is for me too.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it just depends.
It is hard. And I was 2,500 miles away, but I have really good friend back there who she would go see my mom regularly. So she's like a sister to me.
Mhm.
And she would put mom on the video camera 2 days before mom passed. And that was
Oh, wow.
so mom she I think she blinked her eyes or something. She let me know she heard me. And
Yeah,
I have a little video of that.
that's a
Things
gift.
Yeah, things like that are we need to treasure. It was hard. It wasn't unexpected. And I've had people say, when my brother died last August, tragically, that was sudden and it was a different story. But I don't know, death is death. If it's sudden, you just have to adjust differently than when it's gradual. And even though you know somebody's passing and it's inevitable, I would say, make sure you talk to someone. Like hospice stayed from North Carolina, they stayed in touch with me. I had the chaplain call me regularly and send me cards and the nurses and stuff. And so even at 2,500 miles away, they care that the genuineness of your organization, be it another state or this one in Redmond, you know, you are just so wonderful, just a resource that it's hard to put words to the how much it means to from coming from me as a family member. I do remember, and I laugh at my reaction when they called me for the first time. We want to put your mom on hospice, and I was like, she's not that far gone. I was,
Yeah,
but they explained she's going to have more visits, she's going to have more company, she's going to have more resources. And I got to tell you, one of the things I do not envy anybody dealing with is Medicare, Medicaid, insurance. Oh my word, my sister about pulled her hair out dealing with some of that stuff. It's a
yeah.
it's a nightmare. Do you have people that assist with that?
We do. We do. Our social workers help out with that. And so,
Yeah.
and they're skilled at it. It's the same with Veterans Administration. We care for a lot of veterans. And so having someone that knows how to navigate all of that is super important and another hospice benefit. I also want to mention, while we're talking about death and the process and afterwards, bereavement is a huge part of process or part of hospice too. And our bereavement coordinator and our team stay with the family and communicate with them for up to 13 months after the passing. And it really depends on what kind of interaction you want. But there's grief groups, there's mailings, there's one-on-one phone calls that can happen to help people navigate loss.
Absolutely. And I had that experience. Matter of fact, it was about a year after her passing. Yeah, that's what it was. I received communication from back there because they said it's frequently difficult, the first year, especially the first
Mhm.
anniversary. And the second one's coming up next week. And yeah, and so I've already been dealing with some of that sadness yet again. It,
Yeah.
your mom is your mom and you only have one. So when you lose a parent, my dad died 35 years ago. So it was a different story and it was cancer and there was no hospice. So everybody's process is different. And I think
Mhm.
people need to understand that grieving is hard no matter what, and everybody grieves differently. There are stages and having you guys as a resource. And I think you and I even talked when mom started on hospice. I think you and I talked because I was like, I don't understand. And you walked me through some understanding. I'm like, oh, I know somebody with hospice. I'm so thankful. So,
Oh, yeah. It can be hard and it's a lot to navigate. There's a lot of emotions in it. And,
it is.
when my dad passed, it was such a beautiful experience. I shared with you that my stepmom was there and that particular night we had all got bowls of ice cream. We're an ice cream family. We love that.
Me
My
too.
dad did too. And so I was sitting next to him eating a bowl of ice cream, and I started reading the Bible because I knew it was close. And my dad was a man of faith, and I'm a woman of faith. And so I sat down next to him, and I started reading in Revelations about how great heaven was. And my dad just, um, his eyes were already closed, but he just took this last breath and he was so peaceful. And it was the most beautiful passing that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And anyway, I don't know why I shared that with you, but that was
No, I really love that. Now, I wasn't obviously able to be there in the last few minutes with my mom, but I had they kept in touch with me and we were back and forth. And I remember getting that text from my sister. She's gone. It wasn't a text. My sister left me a voicemail, and she was really broken up because she had been even though mom was in the care facility, my sister would always go over and get her laundry, and she visited and bought her special food and stuff like that. So I know it's been hard on my younger sister is when
yeah.
that when you know when that all took place. And then they had a memorial service, which was 6 months after, for all the hospice people that had died in the last year, I think. And they invited me to that, and that was, of course, I couldn't go because it's so far away. But all of those things matter, just the little things we don't even think about, because I think I got closer to the hospice nurses and caregivers than I did
Oh,
my own family because they kept me more informed. And that's
well, and it is important. And we have one of those too, Janice, every year. It's usually around Christmas time. It's called Light Up a Life. And people can submit a picture and
oh,
we do a candle lighting and read off someone's name. And so we have community members that come and our bereavement team does bereavement support for community members too. They don't have to be on hospice with us.
oh,
So you might check in with your sister and make sure she's connected. And then for you as well, if you ever want to come and join in on that service, it's one of my favorites. I think it's so beautiful.
oh, that's great. Now, speaking of things that you guys do, you've got a veterans wall, and I'd like our audience to know about that if they're local. I'm trying to interview more and more local people and continue to, get the word out about all kinds of things that people do in that local community. So let's talk about that veterans wall for a few minutes and how that started,
Sure.
how that's going.
Sure. It's going well. So we have, I guess it's a small replica of the Veterans Wall. Um, and um, it was constructed in 2013.
Hmm.
And it has names etched on it. My husband's grandfather's on there. It
Oh,
says his name and then his service and then his service dates. And there's 61 names on a panel. And so we have about 11 panels so far. And yeah, it's pretty neat. It really is. It's very touching. There's a flag out, and there's flags along the wall from each of the different branches of service. And then every third Wednesday, the honor guard comes and plays taps at that wall every third Wednesday at 4:30. And
oh,
so we love caring for veterans. We do veteran pinnings and thank our veterans that are on our hospice service and provide them with a flag pin, a thank you certificate, and do a little ceremony for them. I have personally witnessed there was a man that had dementia, like we were talking about. He was a veteran and he had pretty much lost his words. We kind of call it a word salad. You really, when he talked to you, it pretty much didn't make any sense anymore. And so when we walked in to do his pinning ceremony, he was just kind of smiling and nodding, and we went up and thanked him and pinned him. But when after he was pinned, he sat up straight and saluted, and clear as day said, "Oh, isn't this wonderful?" it
my
was
word. I
it
hope
was
somebody, oh, did y'all get that on camera?
I think that his family did. It was
Oh,
just so cool. And we've had numerous experiences like that. We had a man that was almost unresponsive who sat up and saluted the honor guard that was in his house,
wow.
because it means so much to them. So many veterans have not had that experience where they were able to be honored and thanked for their service, especially if they were Vietnam, right? And
Exactly.
so having this has been really special. So it's just a really cool thing that we do.
That is fantastic. Those are great stories. So I'm glad we got that on record with you, and you'll be able to share this out. Um, okay, so we're gonna wrap this up, but I want you
Okay.
to what any final words, advice, whatever you'd like to share in the next few minutes as we get ready to say goodbye for this episode. What would you like to say, Jane?
First, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And it's an honor to be here. And second of all, I guess if related to hospice, don't wait too long. You know, if someone sees that there is a decline going on with their loved one and they need help, we're there. It's a free service. We don't charge people for this service. Medicare covers most of it. Private insurance covers most of it, but we're not charging. We're a small nonprofit, and we are thrilled to come alongside people and help them through this journey. We're the experts, and I think it makes a big difference to have that help at that end because it can be so hard.
I can
And so
vouch for that. I can vouch for that, even though it was a different hospice. I think you guys operate in a very similar way. And and so as far as community support, you do rely on donations
we
and
do.
fundraising. So let's spend a couple minutes. We're going to hit up the community with this. Let's do that.
So we do. We're a community-based nonprofit, and so in Central Oregon, there's only three nonprofits. One's hospital-based, and the other two are community-based. The rest of the hospices in the area are for-profit hospices, and I
Oh,
think that there is a difference in that, like our transitions program, we provide that program for free to the community. It's a service that we do because we want to honor our community with that. We consider ourselves community partners. So that's one of the services. One of the other services that we didn't talk about that I want to touch on just really quick is one called Pet Peace of Mind, which
uh-huh.
allows us to come in and help people when they have pets at the end of their life that they're not able to care for. We have volunteers that can come and assist with that care so that the pets and their owners can stay together through the end of life. That's
Nice.
such a big deal. I'm a dog person. I'm telling you, when I'm at end of life, I want my dog there. And so that's another big thing that we're able to do to help. But we do fundraising. We have an event every year called Festival of Trees that we do that allows people to come in and really help support us businesses or just individuals. Some people will come and decorate trees to be auctioned off in honor of their loved ones. Some businesses do it for fun, and it's a tree package, so they're really pretty grand. And then we have every first Saturday of December, we hold a gala event called Festival of Trees where we live auction those trees off. It's a ton of fun. You've been,
I've been
yeah,
I have some experience with the Festival of Trees on as a tree decorator, which I will tell our audience if you're thinking about doing it, get a team. Don't A team of two does not work. We tried that. That was a lot. But it is a lot of fun. The galas are fun. And whether you buy anything or not, just buying a ticket and showing up has an impact.
it does.
And you guys need that community support. And Redmond has really strong community. So I can say, it
I
is,
agree.
yeah, we have a really good community. You're very strong. First thing I noticed about Redmond as I got involved in business was the community support. And that's very important. But I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart with all this information for our listeners, whether you're in Redmond or wherever you are, and take her advice. Jane knows her stuff. Don't wait too long. Don't think what I did and think it's too soon. I'm glad that somebody educated me, and I thank you for being there, for being part of that education. And
Of course, anytime. I'm
yeah,
happy.
well, reach out to hospice if you have any questions. I mean, even if it's not time, just there to answer questions or to give your support and have a veteran, and you also do a summer thing for kids, right?
We did. Oh, I didn't talk about Camp Sunrise.
Uh,
Thank you. It's like in 2 weeks.
Oh,
Yes, we do Camp Sunrise as well. And yeah, we do a grief camp every year for kids. Thank you for reminding me. I'm sorry I didn't talk about that earlier. But we do a grief camp for children, and it's up at Subtle Lake, and it's for this will be our first year with teens as well. But we've been doing ages 7 to 14, and then have added teens this year. And so it's really important for kids to have that connection with each other and understand that they're not alone. So one thing about children's grief that I think that is different about adult grief is that kids are so hesitant to talk about it. And the reason why is because usually someone in the home is sad and they don't want to make that person sad.
yeah.
So then they hold all of that in. And so being able to let them come to a place where they can do their own process and honor their loved ones is just huge for them. And we give them tools to help them process their grief. I really wish that when my mom passed, that and my mother-in-law too, that my kids would have had this opportunity to go to a camp like this. I wish I would have known.
Mm.
Our camp's been in existence for this will be our 27th year, and it's just a beautiful thing.
That is fantastic. Well, you guys definitely stay busy. And thank you again for all the information. And we'll have all of Jane's contact information, how to reach out about the camp, about transition, whatever you might need. We'll have all that information available with the video. And thank you again. Thank you to our listeners.
Thank you.
Stay tuned for another episode of Courage, Confidence, Connections podcast. Janice Debo signing off with Jane McGuire.
Thanks so much, Janice.
You're welcome. Thank you.